nei te mihi mahana kia koutou kua, hui hui mai nei e raro I te tuanui o Wairau Māori Art Gallery. I ngā mana, I ngā reo, I ngā karangaranga, mahi, maha, nau mai, haere mai, tēnā koutou. My name is Gina Matchitt. I am the kaimanga mātauranga for Wairau Māori Art Gallery, educator, and this is the opening weekend of Kai o Te Rangi, an exhibition here up in Whangarei, curated by Larissa McMillan, our ringahutu toi. She's our director as well. It includes 4 contemporary Māori artists. We've got Hemi McGregor, Toitarito Mihi, Collingwa Ata Urlich, and with us, Gina Matchitt. Welcome, Gina. So, Gina Matchitt, got a little bio here. Flag if I've got something. Gina Matchitt is a renowned contemporary artist, a designer whose practice explores customary Māori art forms with contemporary global culture. She's a curator as well, and she currently resides in the Waikato Museum and Gallery, also an art historian. Gina studied design at Unitec, holds a master's in visual art as well as a postgraduate diploma in museum studies at Heritage. You got that from Victoria University. Yeah. And you'll find her work within most of our larger art gallery institutions around Aotearoa. And her art spans diverse media, includes weaving, digital design, jewellery. She navigates complex cultural narratives, offering a voice that is vibrantly responsive to our contemporary discourse.
Yeah,
and vibrant just hits it from me. I find your work and your approach to tackling issues a vibrant one. So, Gina, we have 3 of your works in this exhibition. Rāranga Patakitiki is behind us here to the side. Where did you learn the practice or the language of rāranga? And did you have any kaiako? And what were some of your earliest memories of that visual language?
I suppose in my whānau we always had rāranga, kete in that form, and then when I was young at school in Rotorua we had a Māori club and I loved we had actual real pupus that we wore. And then my mum, who in her whānau grew up in Rātoke, so they were native speakers, and then one of her sisters married into Tūhoe, and she was always a weaver, particularly with pupu and kete, and so my mother's like, oh well, if you want to go and learn Māori and weave and go and stay with your auntie Bubbles, and I'm like, she's a little bit scary. And so I'd kind of always learnt bits, I suppose, everywhere. I learnt it a little bit at Whakarewa. We're sort of related to the Ngāti Tarawhai carvers and weavers as well. We to them. So there's always, and then there's art in the whānau. I mean, not so much rāranga. Paramacha is a cousin, and then Ana Wilson is a cousin of my mother's. So art is very much in the whānau. Weaving has been a gradual process. And actually, I've just recently learned how to close a kete, like weave the bottom. Finally. Actually, Arita, who was here last night, we went and did kind of stayed with Auntie Bubbles in the 90s and did a little bit of weaving with her.
The 2 of you together?
Yeah, I forgot about that. It's a while ago. Yeah, so that's where it comes from, and I'm learning more actually about my dad's side. His grandmother from Whakatoa here, Hiramoko Kōwai, and he remembers her as a small child in the 30s. And now I'm finding out more about her weaving, and this auntie just brought out this beautiful little kete. It's disintegrating because of the paru. And I'm like, no one ever told me about this. Like, I'm finding out more and more. It's really interesting. Yeah. So I didn't really have a kaiako. I would attribute out to bubbles as my main sort of inspiration. And then my mother learnt in her 70s actually through Te Wānanga Aotearoa.
Fantastic. Auntie Bubbles sounds formidable.
Yes, she is. She was.
Cool. Now, innovation is a remarkable aspect of our mātauranga Māori, and it's ever-developing form that it takes collectively. The next set of questions I have for you about how you carry traditional aspects of the practice while using things from our modern world. And how do you balance that with cultural commodification, those sorts of issues?
Well, I think the thing is, I've always been interested in, particularly in the design. There's something about the repeating patterns in Te Ao Māori that have always really resonated with me, but it's interesting. I suppose I didn't want to be a weaver as such, but it's always been interesting to me. So what I wanted to do was kind of push the boundaries of pattern, and then again being influenced by a lot of contemporary Māori artists and how they take aspects or they develop aspects of Te Ao Māori, but in new ways and with new materials. So I have this.
Many nouns that you'd share with us?
Oh,
Too many.
Wairau Māori. I'm just thinking when I was younger. I mean, a lot of influence that was actually, I find a lot of my influence came from, I grew up in Rotorua, so I was very exposed to that whole kind of those tourist elements and things that Māori were selling. There's almost a bit of kitschness to my, that I loved. As a child, I used to take visitors around Whatever, because my parents were like, never wanted to go. And I'm like, yes, I'll take them, I'll show them everything. Like a mini type Rangi. And
Yes.
I loved it. And I loved going into the shop to see, the things that were being sold. I mean, probably totally inappropriate now. So I had that kind of influence, and I think what I wanted to do, what I realised once I started making bigger works, was I wanted to explore those threads about how you could develop or change the pattern in different ways and with different materials. So that's what I have this thread of from one show to the next, even though I change my materials a lot. And I'm like, which doesn't help if you want to have a kind of, I suppose, signature style of work, but it keeps on changing, and then I drive my husband a little bit crazy because I have all these different materials that I save, like computer keys and lids and recycled packaging and all sorts of materials. So I don't know if I'll hone it in. I just keep going, like, I'm a bit of a magpie, and I like the sort of everydayness of materials, and particularly materials that you can recycle, that you can find and recycle. So yeah, that's my.
And I formed this in a question, but now it's coming into my mind as a statement. There's an accessibility there because it's something recognised by people who aren't ingratiated into gallery spaces. That access wasn't there for them and their whānau.
Yeah,
So when they do step in and they see something from home.
Yeah, so I suppose it's thinking outside of the box, and obviously if you're working with materials that you might say are not traditional or customary, then you don't have that worry, I suppose, of not following technical processes and all those kinds of, if you don't have that connection. So again, that was probably part of my thinking and process as well. Oh well, I don't have to be worried about am I doing something wrong? Am I, if you don't have a
freedom to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, freedom to experiment, but also you're not doing something that might endanger you or the material or whatever in that technical way. Yeah.
Safety.
Yeah.
When do you see some practices around you that slipped into a yaki experimenting with Māori visual language? Does that ever come up?
Oh yeah, all the time. And from at a very high level, but at a very sort of basic level as well. I know in the past, particularly Rita and I, when we were students, we would confront artists that perhaps were appropriating and have discussions about what appropriation is and is. And now obviously with the advent of AI, it's just going to get worse. So definitely always calling out, particularly non-Māori who think that it is somehow their right to use Māori design or imagery or whatever. It's like, no, actually, you can't do that.
We're going to take a break.
Yeah.
Toi Iho has a really user-friendly educational resource and a flowchart in English and Te Reo Māori if you're not sure, and especially if you're communicating in marketing or in education spaces. Go onto the Toi Iho website and feel supported in your next choice.
Great. That's great. Thank you for that. I can point someone.
You can probably point out people who are making themselves
not that I'm appropriation police, but it really annoys me.
If you were a cat though, this would be a great appropriation. Oh, great. Changing tack now a little bit because of time. You had some kōrero around this iconic, phenomenal piece, Uinoku by Toitirito Mihi. And this work was painted in a classroom in Bay Islands while the kids were playing outside, peeping in through the window. From there, it went on another journey, and now it's in the care of the Waikato Museum.
Yeah. So my current colleague Marie Mills tells the story about this work and how the artist Toitirito Mihi gifted it to Te Wharetonga Waikato Museum and Gallery. And it goes back to an experience that Toi had when she was a child, and she saw uinoku, the beautiful carving that was in Te Māori, and I think it was at the Te Awamutu Museum. It resides there. Unfortunately, Te Awamutu is closed at the moment, so it's in their collection storage. But anyway, apparently Toi, when she was a child, she went in and she felt she had this really overwhelming experience when she saw uinoku. She said she felt like it was following her around, and she was like, "Well, this is, really intense." And through this work, what she tried to do years later was talk about the experience, was to talk about how, it starts very, you can see the pattern, and then it gets very confusing, and she had this sort of, I wouldn't say vertigo, but something like that. And why she gifted it to Waikato Museum is because she said she wanted the work to be as close as possible to uinoku, the real uinoku. Yeah, so really amazing work, and she gifted it. Yeah. So we're really honoured to have that in the collection.
Well, thanks for supporting it again.
Yeah.
Another aspect of your creative work is your curatorial practice.
Yeah.
I find this really interesting. Can you share a little bit about first your curatorial journey, what you thought it would be like versus the reality of this ecosystem, this arts ecosystem you're in, and economic system, and local governance, it all plays in probably. And then after that, we might have a little bit of a chat about the current Diane Prince activist artist.
Sure. So I have come to curatorial practice later in my life. I was known as an artist. My whānau and I, because of my husband's job, we lived overseas for 7 years. And during that time, I actually did my Masters of Māori Visual Arts in distance. And before we left, I'd lectured about Māori art, and I also lectured on Māori art history at Vic. So I had this sort of burgeoning lecturing practice. So I thought that when we returned, which was in 2014, that I'd be able to get some kind of job, especially as I was doing museum studies. But there were no real lecturing or teaching jobs here. I'd also taught Māori art at Te Whanango Awanui Arangi and Whakatane. I've got this gamut of all things. So I thought, I'll be able to get a job. That was not the case. And a colleague of mine suggested, why don't you become a curator? And I'm like, yes, curator sounds like me. Pick the art, pick the artist, coordinate a show. So I went down that route, but it was quite, I think it's particularly difficult for Māori curators because you don't go the normal route of a Western curator. You don't do art history and then it's laid out. And we don't actually have any focused curatorial programs in Aotearoa. So I found it took me a long time to land a curatorial job. It's probably taken me about 9 years. And I did the Blumhardt internship, which was a great experience. And then I ended up curating independently, just people would offer.
Sorry to interrupt you, it wasn't just your first shot in applying for the Blumhardt.
No, it took three times.
That's what it takes.
Yeah. And I curated a jewellery show instead. So it's just sort of it's a struggle. And then I'm also involved in the Māori Curatorial Network, which we're endeavouring to support Māori curatorial practice and writing because there aren't those distinct pathways. So that's part of. But I also think that being an artist and being a curator, they both inform each other. So you're always learning.
Where do you see opportunity for the right kind of nourishment and support?
Well, I'd love for it to be in a Māori tertiary setting, but also I think because there hasn't been distinctive pathways, that through the network and other support we can awhi Māori curatorial practice. Yeah.
Now, the Diane Prince activist artist in that order show that you curated at first at Pātaka and then went to Suta until the 8th of October, and then it travels to Heratonga in Hastings, a touring show.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you please talk a little bit about the journey of that show from your perspective?
So that show, again, it was an opportunity. Pātaka, the director and the curators there said, we'd like you to curate a show for us. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want? I went, whatever you want to do. I'm like, right. So I'd got to know Diane over the years, and I think her practice had been, really overlooked when you consider her participation in Bastion Point and how she's always made art, but always been involved in Māori rights protests. So, and why it's called activist artist is because she said to me, I'm not an artist, I'm an activist first, and the art comes later. And then I don't know if you all know about the controversy originally with a work called Flagging the Future that was in Kōrero in the 90s. There was a big uproar because she asked viewers if they wanted to walk on the flag, the New Zealand flag, as a form of protest. So there was a big hoo-ha about that in Auckland at the time, and it got removed from the gallery, or they asked to remove the flag, and she removed her work. And then for this exhibition, we discussed the possibility of her remaking Flag in the Future and another work called Te Hono Ki Waitangi, Tent Embassy.
The first flag was burned.
Yeah, so interestingly, I said to her, would you consider remaking it? What happened to the flag, the original flag? She said, oh, that was burnt by Tamaiti at some activation. I was like, and she said, it had a great end. So I said, would you be willing to remake these works? And she did. We expected a little bit of, we were prepared for the backlash again at Pātaka. Nothing. And then
there was no complaints, at least none that reported to you.
Nothing. So we were kind of prepared, and then when it went to the SOTA in Nelson, it blew up, literally. And the director made the decision to remove the flag, but have a placeholder to say why the flag was removed. And that was only due to this significant complaints that the gallery staff and the director had to deal with, emails, phone calls, people coming in, and then also some very violent threats to the SOTA and the councillors
and their staff.
So it wasn't that we wanted to remove the work, but we were understood from the director's perspective, she had to do what was best for her gallery and staff.
Thank you for sharing light on that, because it was an evocative time, and there were a lot of opinions, varied understandings of the sequence of events that led to a censorship of the artwork.
Yeah, and I think, we now that it's died down, we want to make a considered response to that, because I think it was just basically bullying and threats and this kind of white fragility that didn't even want to engage in conversation. You can't reason, you couldn't have a conversation. So we're prepared for when it goes to Here Tonga, we'll be better prepared. And then it will come to Te Whare Tonga or Waikato next October with a bit of a camp. So yeah.
That's in America, they've done a really helpful study with research and interviews with gallery directors to find out when are their works being censored. Is this becoming more common? It is becoming significantly more common. Who are the people who are pushing for artworks to be removed? By far one demographic, which tracks with the people responding to the Dying Prince show. You Google PEN America, the Independent Writers Union, who collaborated with a few other organisations. You can find out more about who likes to censor our art and our institutions, and what kind of governance structures around them allow that to happen. We've come to our Q&A time. So interesting. I could talk for you about this. Do we have any questions? Faye?
Would you ever consider writing a program for directors yourself that they can access and then get a qualification for it?
As a director program?
Yes.
No,
sorry, I mean a curator.
A curator program.
program.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's been a little bit of talk about incorporating something like that within the courses at Massey in Wellington. But yeah, I definitely would. But I think also there has to be, we were talking about this before, that Māori art history or contemporary Māori art history has to be taught in an institution. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a university, it could be a wānanga. Because actually it's Ngāti no Alice that teaches really the only Māori art history course within a university structure. I mean, obviously at Massey and Māori Visual Arts and the wānanga, there's definitely elements of that, but it's not a sort of a standalone course. So I'd like to see that all the major universities teach Māori art history, and it also means it solidifies the importance. And then especially if you look at how Māori art is revered and how it is viewed internationally. You know, we've had Lisa Reihana, Mata Ahoya, Fred Graham, Brett Graham. Next year it's going to be Fiona Partington. So we're really happy to present Māori artists to the world, but it's almost as if it's not as important at home. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I can ask a question.
Yes.
I'm really fascinated by the artworks that you have in this exhibition and the use of local materials. For example, the one that we are all looking at. Can you talk us through the process? Did you look at a keyboard one day and you thought that would be nice material?
Took a panel.
What did the idea come from?
So what happened was, again, my auntie Bubbles and my mum, we're doing a free kaimātua course about computers, about learning how to use computers at Awanui Arangi in Whakatane. They offered these courses. So, and then actually Nigel Morrell wrote about this work. I have to dig that out. And then, so what happened was, I started thinking about the ways in which Māori communicate, obviously through visual language customarily, and then I thought about this kind of crossover about how Māori are learning to use new technology with computers and digital technology. And then I went, oh, that'd be great. What if I... so I just had this idea that I could get old keys and they'd be perfect. I actually started off thinking with tiles, like little mosaic tiles. I'm like, yeah, but that didn't really work, didn't really resonate. They're pretty, but they had no substance. So then, because Mum and Auntie Bubbles were doing this course, I'm like, perfect. And the other thing that was really interesting at the time, and I did too, this is Auntie Bubbles, is that she lived up in Ruatoki. She did not have hot water in her house because, you know, she had a wetback and a fire and it wasn't working, but she had a laptop. So, you know, the technology, And originally I made these panels that were tuku, so there were two. There's actually a pair to this one. It belongs to a friend of mine in Washington DC. So I always made them in pairs that sort of reflect that balance and, talk about how in a whananui there's always pairs. Yeah.
The other thing too is that those keys have had a life before
Yes.
they came to that.
Yeah.
Whereas mosaic tiles wouldn't have.
No, it's and again when you flick the keys off the keyboard, I just do it with a screwdriver. Oh my god, it's kind of disgusting. And the keys, like next time, I had to clean this up. But actually, if I ever make them again, what I'll be doing is washing all the keys first, because I used to put them on and then kind of clean them up, and it's harder to do that. So yeah, they have this life, and someone who recycled in the States who recycled the keyboards said actually it's the plastic keys are the hardest part to recycle. They can't recycle.
You're famous now, you can get a conservative to
Oh, I had to do conservation on this one myself. Fix it up and clean it up.
Certainly not typecast.
No, and the other ones, the tukutuku have whakatauki in them that you have to find.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but not in this one. No, not this one. But next time, if I do another body of work that relates to that, I'll put some whakatauki.
Shame.
Kia ora, Gina. Can you? It's not really a question. It's really just from an artist's point of view. What's your interest in pattern? I know there's most probably 1,000 different ways you can answer that, but because one of the things about this show is really the importance of pattern, and the things that happen in each of these works, repetition of certain patterns, and I find it interesting the way that we, as artists, usually as a starting point, we'll go back to things that have pattern, but we really want to elevate it beyond just the way that it sort of looks. We want it to sort of speak or be conceptual. Can you sort of talk about that in a way?
I suppose because already those patterns have their own visual language and mana, and obviously different patterns have different narratives or kōrero depending on where they come from in Aotearoa, so everyone's. So I think every hapu and iwi has their patterns, their individual or multiples of them. I suppose, again, they're also like tools that we use to teach mathematical thinking and resolve problems. So I see them as like this wealth of knowledge in multiple ways. And also just visually, I think I've always been obsessed with black and white and how these patterns work, and looking at whether it's raranga or tukutuku, or particularly raranga, or whether it's kakahu and those really beautiful border tānako patterns. It's like just the fascination of how they're figuring out how are they made and what do they mean and how the skill involved, but then just sort of bringing them into a modern world, I think, and using materials that are accessible or almost a bit kitschy, the tape or the. So again, it's, I suppose, that level of how Māori have always adapted and like used what's at hand, been resourceful, but you can still have this thread of our Tūpuna's knowledge coming through. Yeah.
The texture, I love the texture, the way we look at the actual pattern, so we can see the texture in the actual pattern, but you've got like the surface texture as well. Was that an accidental outcome, or was that planned? How you've got like the uneven, like some keys are lower than others to give that texture?
Just as how the keys, some keys are higher, and some keys are lower, and it's actually a real problem for me to find white keys now. So if anybody finds, I'm like got all my mates hunting for white keyboards, because even if you've got the new, say like Mac ones that people get rid of, they're really too thin. I can't use them. So I need the old school keyboards, and the new keyboards are always black. Although there's some now that are starting to do colours and some that are circles. So but.
So were you aware of the unevenness of the keys before you started?
Not really. No.
Accidentally it comes through. Yeah. And do you plan it out on a graph paper first or something like that?
No.
Just let it free flow?
No, but I do kind of do a centre and I work out from the centre. So I have a pattern and you sort of start in the centre and then work out.
The technician.
I hate maths, by the way.
Yes.
I'm terrible, but I have to use it if I do raranga. But it kind of makes sense.
It's a
because
different maths though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a practical maths.
Yes.
It's not like an algebra weird thing. Yeah.
So working out from the centre with that,
Mm.
did you have some sort of notional idea of what the dimension would be ultimately? Or was it
Yeah.
determined by the availability of white keys?
No. Well, no, because I have the pattern. There's a Rangi for Kōrero book that has all these patterns in black and white. It's like the Bible of patterns, by Mick Prendergast. Really great resource if you're a novice weaver like me. And so I knew I could kind of count, how far the pattern would be. Sort of as long as you've got a central, you want something centered. It's interesting because the raranga is on a diagonal, obviously, but the tukutuku is easy because it's straight up and down. So that's why this one again is a bit trickier because you've got the diagonal of the keys on the edges as well, which is again a practical issue. But start in the middle, centered.
But the edges are beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the shadow's lovely.
That sounds like a nice point to end on. Gina, thank you. Mihi.
Kia ora.
Wonderful kōrero, so many helpful resources mentioned from you. Your experience is now a tool for us to learn from as well.
Kia ora.
Thank you. So generous.
Kia ora. Thank you. Lovely to be here and be part of this.